Hello, and welcome to the Perfect Franchise Podcast.
I'm Kris, and joining me is my wonderful co-host, Andrea.
In this podcast, we're on a mission to help you discover all that franchising has to offer.
We'll explore expert strategies, interview successful franchise owners, and give you the tools to make informed decisions.
So whether you're considering your options or you're ready to take that plunge, we're here to support you every step of the way.
So let's jump into today's episode. Hi, welcome back to the TPF podcast. Today, our guest is David Kadish, WSI franchisee. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
David, I love when we get to have, previous clients on and franchisees. It's definitely a different lens. So I'm excited about that. So David, start out and tell us, why did you leave corporate America and explore business ownership? Give us sort of the background there.
So I've always been my own boss. I own my own business for about 25 years. Going back about 3 years ago, I was lucky enough to be able to sell that business. And so I started working for a new organization. I always thought that I wanted to work for a really large company. I thought that would be exciting. And I had always worked just for myself. But after about a year and a half of working for someone else, I realized I don't really like working for other people. So I said, I really want to try something different. But at the same time, I didn't really know any other industry because I had been involved in the same industry for so long. So I knew I had to go to the franchise route. And so it was about 2 summers ago that I reached out to the Perfect Franchise and Mark Schnerman to see where that would take me.
It's hard, right? Working for yourself. Let me hit on that. Like that's a huge piece. And I tell people that all the time. My husband and I've worked for ourselves for years, and it's so hard to go back and try it with somebody else. And, once you've done that and you've worked for yourself, most of our clients say, I'd never do it again. You kind of took that leap back and then realized real quick, nope, I got to go back out on my own. So that's great.
David, I wanted to ask you, previously as a business owner, you had your own independent business. I'm assuming you started it from scratch, built everything from the ground up, right? So I think sometimes people with your kind of background, they worry that, hey, now I'm playing within the rules that somebody else, meaning the franchisor, is providing for me. There's guardrails on this thing, and I can't do absolutely anything and everything that I want to do like I could do with my first business. Was that ever a concern for you? And if it was, how'd you overcome that? Or did you find out it wasn't true?
So it was pretty unique in the fact that in my old business, I had actually had the opportunity to work with a WSI franchisee. And so when I was looking for a franchise to go with, Mark was obviously giving me various options, different companies and different, industries. And when he mentioned WSI, I said, wait, they're a franchise? I didn't know that. I was working with an individual, and I knew they were part of a larger organization, but I didn't really know it was a franchise. And so when Mark presented that to me, I knew what it was about. I didn't know obviously the ins and outs, but I knew I had been working with somebody for a good 2 years, and I really wasn't, dealing with anybody but this particular franchisee. And so I knew a little bit about WSI, so it made the transition to that fairly easy.
Yeah. Well, for everybody listening or watching, just give a quick blurb. What is WSI? What kind of franchise is it? What do you do? What do you offer?
So WSI is a global digital marketing agency. WSI was started 25 years ago, pretty much right around the time the internet started and took off. And in the beginning, they pretty much were doing websites because back then that was it. Everybody needed a website. And WSI has really, morphed into so much more because as time went on, now everybody has a website. And now you're more into, okay, we obviously still do websites, but mostly we do something where we're trying to grow our clients' businesses, either through could be search engine optimization, SEO, or Google Ads, or could be Facebook ads. Really, we look at each particular industry and each particular business and make a determination on how do we drive business to these people so that they can excel. And so that's our main goal. But it's more of a collaborative effort. So within our organization, if we're looking at a specific industry that maybe I personally haven't dealt with, I can reach out to my other franchisees and say, hey, we have a yoga studio that is very interested in utilizing our services. What have you done that's been successful? And what have you done that hasn't worked?
Yeah, no, that's great. Being able to leverage the other franchisees in the system is really powerful, right? You're coming into a business and you're not there on your own, and that's probably was different than your first business. And so now you have these people to kind of lean off of. Was that something that you found a lot of value in?
Yeah, I mean, WSI does a great job of, when we went to our training, and they basically gave us so much information to take in, and we went to our training session, which was in Toronto, which is where the headquarters is. And even now, the people I was in the training session with, we have these weekly calls between all of us because we're all newbies to this franchise, and so we talk about our what's working for us and what's not working for us. How can we help each other? If somebody is good at one thing, hey, here's what you need to be doing to improve. Because everybody's got different skill sets, and the amazing thing about this is everybody comes from somewhere different. Not everybody owned their own business like I did. A lot of people, come from where, just corporate America, where they never had to be their own boss. They always had, here's my job, here's what I have to do. But now, when you're your own boss, it's not just running the business. There's so many different things. You're in business development. You're in operations. You're also the finance guy. You're the HR. You're everything. So some things people are good at, some things people aren't. So it's about helping each other out so that we're all successful.
Yeah, we always have a saying in our business, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself with a franchise. And that's not just the franchise brand, that's all those existing franchisees that are there to support each other and usually pretty open to supporting each other. It's great to have that.
Right. And WSI does a great job. They have coaches for us. So we have weekly meetings with our coach. We have training sessions with kind of like the OGs, the people who have been around for 15, 20 years and have been successful. And this is how I did it. And this is what you need to do. And this is how you got to stay away from this. And everybody makes their mistakes. You go out and you take on a client that you probably shouldn't have, but you know it's all good because you have to learn, and they give you enough information so that you make your own decisions. And that's the beauty of WSI. Even though they've given you parameters, like here's how you should be doing something, um, you can do it. You can do whatever you want. It's your business, so you can still do what you want, but they are trying to keep you in certain lanes so that you are successful.
David, I want to back up a little bit and talk about your experience going through the perfect franchise process, because you happen to have been a client for WSI and that kind of gave you a familiarity with them. But I'm sure Mark asked you a lot of questions. I'm sure he showed you more brands than just WSI. And just because you knew WSI as a client didn't mean it was ultimately going to be the best match for your skill sets and what you were looking to accomplish. So, kind of walk us through, you don't have to name other brands, but just, what else did you look at? What other sectors? What did you learn? And ultimately, what were those boxes that had to be checked for you that made you decide on WSI being the best match?
Right, right. So I actually was referred to Mark by somebody who he went to college with. Um, I just happened to be talking to a friend of mine, telling him what I thought I was, looking to do, and he said, "Hey, I know somebody that, that could help you." And so I reached out to Mark. Had an initial conversation with him. He then sent me this really long booklet of information that, fill this out so that I can get a feeling for who you are and where I think I can, what I think is best for you. So I filled out all that information, and then we had a nice long conversation. And we went through all different what I wanted, what I didn't want. I knew I didn't want a brick and mortar franchise. I didn't want to be making the donuts at 3 a.m. or anything like that. I wanted something. I've been in business for 25 years. I kind of thought I wanted to stay within that framework of not having a building, but working with other business owners that I thought I could help, because I've been through a lot. I mean, I went through the ups and downs, including the pandemic, where the business I was in when the pandemic hit, we were on the cusp of, wow, is my business even going to survive? I've been doing this for 20 years, and now because of the pandemic, am I going to lose everything? But we were able to come out the other side, and on that business. So working with Mark, we went through a list of different options. We talked through a lot of things. Yes, when he came up to WSI, because he had no knowledge that I had ever worked with WSI, and so once we started down that process, not only was I dealing with WSI and their people, but Mark was giving me other people that he had worked with in the WSI as a franchisee who had joined WSI, and so I was kind of talking to people who WSI wasn't giving me. But hey, they were only 3 months in, so of course WSI is not going to put you in touch with them just because they're so new to the process. So I had the ability to talk not only to the references that WSI put in front of me, but the ones that Mark gave me. And then, of course, since I had worked with somebody at WSI, I also reached out and talked to them as well.
So obviously WSI is a B2B business, and it sounds like your previous business was in that space. Is that sort of where you were focused, where you didn't want retail? Would you have kind of gone towards customer? Did you look at some of the B2C, and what made you gravitate to B2B?
I guess because I just didn't really want to be dealing with the general public day in and day out. I've never, in my old business, we dealt with, even though I actually owned a physician billing service. So our clients were doctors, but all the people that we dealt with were patients. And so had to deal with a lot of patients and insurance companies and things like that. So now, even though my clients from WSI are all businesses, we have to, some of them are B2B and some of them are B2C. So we do have to deal with the general public and come up with marketing ideas for how do we get the landscape architect to generate more business for himself, whereas other clients that we deal with are just dealing with other businesses, and how do we generate business for them.
So, David, talk me through. All right, so you go through Mark's process. You decide on WSI. What are those first few months look like as far as training, launching, and getting the word out in a B2B franchise?
So, with WSI, once I really had dealt, zeroed in on WSI, had to go through a pretty extensive process of just being accepted by WSI. They don't just hand the keys to anybody, because they want the person to be successful. And I think, in years past, they may have just let anybody become a franchisee, and the goal is not to let somebody become a franchisee that's going to fail. So you go through that process, and once you pass that process and you make the investment, then WSI, first, before you go to your in-person training in Toronto, they give you hours of e-learning to go through every single step, from how do you get a business bank account to here's what you need to do for this is the type of computer you're going to need. And then you go to the training, and it's a week long training where you're meeting other the other people from the franchisees that are in your training group. They go through a whole process, really opening your eyes about digital marketing and how to sell digital marketing and what's involved in digital marketing and all the different advantages and disadvantages of that. Um, and at the end of that training, you're confident that you know enough, but you're also terrified that, oh my God, there's so much that I just learned in a week. I don't know how I'm going to remember all this going forward.
So that's the beginning, right? Like you're the fearful, those are the kind of challenges going into it. But what did it sort of look like now that you're further out? Those first few months are challenging. But what does it look like now that you're in the business and you're in it, longer term?
I think I have an advantage because I owned my own business. And I think that's brought a lot of calming to myself because it's a lot. I think people have to realize that, who work in the corporate world and they go home at 5 o'clock and they're done, that when you own your own business, it's 24/7. Like if you get an email at 8 o'clock from somebody that's panicked because their website is down or something's going on, they want an answer. You're on call. They might be calling you, so you really have to realize that when it's your own business, and you want to be successful, you have to be thinking about your business all the time. And I was used to that, so it doesn't bother me. I'm checking my emails. If I'm watching TV at 9 o'clock, I'm checking my work emails to make sure that there's nothing that came in after hours that needs to be handled. So there's always a little bit of terror because it's your own business. You're no longer getting a paycheck week to week because you just showed up. It's your own business, and so in the starting phase, you kind of have to use that terror and go with it and make sure that you're working really hard. So people that buy a franchise and think they're just going to make a lot of money because they now own a franchise, they have to realize that they have to work hard. And yes, if you work hard and you do the right things, you'll probably be successful. But you don't just buy a franchise, and it's not like Vegas where you put your money in a slot machine and money starts rolling out because you own a franchise. You have to work hard for it.
You know, you made me think of something, David. So I think people could kind of skim over this without stopping and going, hey, wait a minute. So you, in describing your first year in business, you've used words like terror twice. You talk about having to be at least thinking about it 24/7. So exactly why is this so much more attractive and desirable than working for that big corporation that you dreamed about working for, right? So what am I missing here?
Well, the beauty is you're your own boss. So you make your decisions and you live with your decisions. So if you get into this franchise and you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm only going to go after the really big clients because they're going to pay me the most money. Well, that's great, but it might take you a really long time to land that one client. And so most of the franchisees in WSI, we all pretty much start with the smaller to medium sized clients. And a lot of times the smaller clients, the local, plumbing company or something like that, who's looking to grow their business. And so them, or you've heard of them because they're in your town or they're in the next town, and so you want to help them, and that's more your speed and more your size, but at the same time you need to get those clients. So one of the major things in at least WSI is going out there and networking yourself. So if you're not comfortable going out and talking to other people and networking with other people, then at least WSI is not for you, because you need to be known and you need to show that, hey, I'm here to help you uh, do what's right for your business. And so a lot of the first few months is just going out and getting your name out there and your company's name out there and meeting people. And that's the one thing that is so different from my past business, is because I was dealing with only physicians in my past business, those were the only people that I could talk to. But here, I talk to so many different people. I go to Chamber of Commerce meetings. I'm in some networking groups, and you meet people from all different industries, all different walks of life. And so I'm meeting so many interesting and cool people. Um, and sometimes that's it. I mean, it's not even that they're my clients. I'm just meeting them, and we have a relationship, and we may never work together. But if I can help them or they can help me, then we try to do that. And so far, about 5 or 6 months in, that I think has really been a very cool thing for me so far.
That's great. We talk about that a lot with our clients when we go through the different sectors. And obviously, you pick something in the B2B space. So you have to really feel comfortable with that networking, that cold calling, that reaching out. And that's very different. And, you think back, David, one of the things you said early on is you had your own business, you started it. So when you went to corporate and you land back in a franchise, why did you choose the franchise the second time? Why was that the path? Why didn't you just go start something again on your own?
I can't imagine doing what I'm doing now and just starting from scratch, because I wouldn't even have known where to begin. Yes, could I have started a business and opened up a bank account? Sure, no problem. But then where do I begin? After my training, they told me about all these different networking groups to join, join the Chamber of Commerce, join BNI. And I had never even heard of business BNI, which is Business Networking International. I'd never even heard of it, and it's everywhere. And now I've met so many nice people in my BNI group that it's just amazing that I'd never even heard of this group. And then as I was telling people that I know that I'm in this group, they're like, "Oh yeah, I used to be in a group like that." I'm like, "I've known you 25 years. I never heard you mention those three letters in a row," but they were in a group just like that. So to me, I really needed support. I didn't want to just start a business on my own. I needed support from something, and a franchise is what really was perfect for me. It's very hard in this day and age to think that you're going to build a better mousetrap by yourself in an industry that you weren't in before.
Wise words. So before we wrap this up, there's two questions we like to ask all of our guests. These questions are not specific to WSI. So the first question is, if you were talking to somebody who they're going through the exact process you went through with Mark, they're looking at franchises, they're seriously considering buying a franchise. What's one piece of advice you'd give that person?
Um, I think you need to pick a franchise that you feel something about. If you're gluten free, then you shouldn't be buying, a donut franchise or something like that. You need to want to work in that industry and feel like you can be good at it. You can't just. At least this is my personal experience. Other people maybe they can buy a franchise that they don't know anything about and be successful. But for me, I needed to kind of know that I could do that. And the fact, and I know we're not supposed to be talking specifically about WSI, but in looking at it, a lot of it is about business development and bringing in clients, and that was something I was comfortable with. And then I knew that behind me was a team of people that could help me with the other part of it, to actually do the work. And so you need to really know what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. And I kind of go back to that form that Mark and the Perfect Franchise had me fill out, and I don't know, I think you put it through a computer and it tells you, hey, this is what you're good at and this is what you're not good at. I don't know if that's a personality test or something like that, but it's spot on, because everybody's good at one thing or some things, but not at everything. And so you really have to listen to, if you're going through the Perfect Franchise, you really have to listen to what they're saying, because if you're not good at something at my age, you're not going to learn it.
Right. Yeah. I always tell my clients, don't ask, can you do this? But you have to ask, do you want to do this? Right. Because people kind of take that attitude like, I can do that if there's enough money in it and I'll be successful, then I can do that. I'm sure you can, but that's not the right question. right? It's if you want to do this and if it really leans into your strengths, to your point, right? So
Exactly.
good advice. So, okay. So now we're talking to that man or woman who bought the franchise. They're in their first year. You know what that's all about. You've already
Yeah.
called it terrifying. So, what would you tell someone who just bought their first franchise? They're in their first few months of business and they are experiencing intermittent terror. What do you tell them?
Um, well, number one, you have to be prepared not to make any money, that you need to reinvest into the business to grow the business. I mean, that's a key thing. You have to kind of have, a little pot of gold put aside so that, you buy your franchise, you can't think this is not where you're going to get a paycheck every week, just like you have been working for corporate America. You have to, start building up money in your business and reinvesting it. Like all the money that's coming into my business, I'm reinvesting into marketing my, buying products that will market me and get me more clients. Because you have to really look for the future and building your business to grow. And you have to realize it is hard work and it's not just 9 to 5. You're no longer a 9 to 5 employee. This is not a 40-hour work week. It could be 60, it could be 80. I mean, I could be working 7 days a week, but you also can choose, since it's your own business, that if on Friday you want to take the day off and go to the beach, you can do that because nobody's going to tell you you can't. That's the beauty of owning your own franchise and being your own boss. Is if you wake up and you don't feel like doing anything today, you don't have to do anything. But, on the flip side, that just means you're not networking, you're not bringing in new business, and so your business isn't going to grow. So you have to make that choice, and it's really your choice.
Good advice. Thanks, David. I really do love when we have franchisees on and ones that have gone through the perfect franchise system and really came out the other side. And you're there, you're getting there, right? You're still early on, but I think there's real value in hearing someone else say, I just want to work for myself. Like I'm putting in that effort. I want to see this be successful, and knowing there's always going to be challenges. It's not going to be an easy road for everybody, but I think that's really helpful. And so thank you so much for coming on and telling our guest about that. So for those of you listening, if you're considering franchising as a potential path to business ownership, remember there's no one size fits all franchise that suits everyone. Even so, there's certainly a franchise out there that's perfect for you. To explore your options and find that perfect franchise match, please visit us at theperfectfranchise.com. By clicking on Let's Talk, you can schedule time to speak with a consultant on the Perfect Franchise team. We look forward to connecting with you again on the next episode. Until then, take care.